Yeah, you were saying about the rainbow. Actually, it's so beautifully, you said it so beautifully that we don't want the child to hold something and throw it, but rather we want to show in a book that this is heavy and this is light. Like by just seeing the picture, like the child can understand what is heavy and what is light instead of letting them play.
Exactly. So when you let your child play, it is learning all of these concepts experientially. And experiential learning is anytime the best form of learning, because what happens is your child's memory gets developed along with the learning itself, and it gets stored as a neural pathway. It becomes, how do I say, brushing over a period of time becomes a very monotonous routine. So for your child, when your child is playing something repeatedly, it is not just playing in a monotonous way or meaningless repetition. What is happening is it is making that learning a part of subconscious system. So that kind of learning will never ever go away. It's always going to be there. And that is how learning happens. And this is why we had this concept saying our family is going to be following the child-led learning system in this house.
That's
So
actually beautiful. So now we are sure that the child can learn, and actually, like even in this right brain technology, which I was seeing, they have these cards to teach them one, two, three, four, and all that. Like the child can eventually learn it on their own. Like they don't have to do it using those cards of looking at the animals and look. You go out on the street, take the child outside, and they will learn what is a cat and a dog and all that naturally. By
you
by
know I so completely agree with you. um we have 5 fingers, 5 toes in the body. There are so many rhymes and everything that has been already written for children, and there's a lot of dancing that happens and all that. And then we have the stumbling monkey, this thing, the song that goes on.
yeah.
I mean, for donkey's years, we have been, at home teaching our children how to count, how to say things, and all that. So these DMT, these right brain activation, this, that, these concepts have come in new. I'm not saying the concept itself is new. The concept has been age old, which has always been there. Like, for example, meditation has been for ages now. It's been like from the BCs. Okay. And Buddha lived in before Christ and all that. Today we are in AD after this thing. But today, scientifically, we are proving that,
Meditation is
we are all
beneficial.
made up of energy, and meditation actually activates your brains, and there's a lot of neurochemical, this thing that goes, and all of these things. The same way, even the right brain activity, the left brain activity, all of these things have been scientifically now, they're coming up with meaning and proof and authenticity towards it. And all of these things, that's my point. What I'm trying to tell the parents here is that your child is naturally learning, no matter where the child is, whether the child is born on the spectrum or whether the child is born with some kind of different ability, or if the child is born on some kind of whatever it is. It doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that your child cannot learn. It just means that your child learns differently and at a different pace from the rest of them. But in that sense, isn't every child very unique? Isn't every child very naturally gifted? We as parents, it's up to us to figure out what will be these gifts of these children, take that into consideration, and nurture them in that format. Let them go forward, let them fly.
Yeah. And what do you say about these routines? Because unschooled child, like we can't force them to sleep on the same time. We can't expect them to wake up at the same time. So what do you say about routines?
See, I don't agree with that. I don't know where this got, how this came about, because if you talk to most of us as unschooling families, right, it is not that we are against routine. It's not that we say we don't have routine. There's always a rhythm to every family. There's always going to be a rhythm to every individual as well. Your child also will have a natural rhythm. When we talk about routine, what we are trying to say is, if an unschooling family, when they come and tell you that, we don't have a routine, what they're trying to tell you is we don't subscribe to the routine as per the societal context. Meaning, if somebody says 9 o'clock bedtime, 5 o'clock in the morning wake up time, we don't say that 9 o'clock has to be the bedtime for my child as well, and 5 o'clock has to be the wake up time for my child. If my child so chooses to spend time in the night because it's more calmer, or because it's more nicer, or because everybody else are quiet, and there are no more demands on the rest of the day's job for the child, and the child finds the solitude, peace, or quiet nice, and they want to spend that time doing something on their own, we encourage that. If the child wakes up late, we're okay with that. But our point is meal times have to be meal, in the sense you need to eat food. It doesn't necessarily have to be at 12 o'clock. As soon as you wake up, 7 o'clock in the morning is your breakfast time. 10 o'clock exactly, you need to have your fruits or whatever it is. We don't have that kind of a routine. We do subscribe that, you need to have healthy meals. It's okay to eat junk as well. I mean, if that is, again, family to family, I'm not going to tell you that you need to allow your child. Please don't come and, sit on my head saying you said it's okay for my child to eat junk. No, I'm not saying that. If you as a parent, if you believe that it's okay to give your child a little bit of biscuits, healthy snacks, or whatever you want to call it, it's up to you. How you create a rhythm around your child, it's up to you. See, the beautiful thing about my own family and my own journey is that my child, my daughter used to go to sleep by 9 in the night, like clockwork. She would just go, she would say I'm done with you people, and she would go and sleep. Nobody needed to tell her go to sleep. She just went to sleep. She would wake up first thing in the morning at 6 o'clock, bang on time, 6, like alarm clock. She would wake up, and she would wake me up, and I'm a very night person, and I completely couldn't handle the fact that she used to come to me and wake me up in the morning and say, wake up, I need milk, dudu, wake up. Luckily for me, my husband was a morning person, so he would take over the morning time when she would be awake, make sure that he makes milk for her, gives it to her, and she is happy and all that. And then she would play, she would do her own thing. She would wait for me to wake up. And when I wake up, then she would engage with me. So we took turns. So it kind of worked out for us. So the rhythm was there based on what the child wanted, or how the child could be. We just figured out our own rhythm around a child's rhythm. That's how we worked. Today, it's very different. Today, she's a teenager. You tell her to go to bed at 9 o'clock, she'll give you a dirty look. She'll be like, 9 o'clock, please, it's way too early. So it changes. As the child grows up, you will see the routines changing. You will see the rhythms evolving. Basically, have a rhythm. Don't get focused on routine.
That's actually, the way you said is so beautiful. Your daughter would go to sleep at 9 when she was younger, and now she has her own time. So eventually all parents are trying to do that. We set a routine, we set this, that child will do this at this age, so that they will continue it for the rest of their life, which will never happen. Don't you think we all do that? We do that to make sure
Exactly.
Future mein yahi karega, future mein he'll do this, like the future routine they'll follow, future they will go out to sleep, future is going to be a good person. Now if he likes future also, he'll lie. Now if he doesn't like future also, he will not like. That is such a, sometimes I feel we live in a bubble. We think, okay, what we do now is what the child is going to completely turn in future. Maybe they will take certain things, but not everything. You don't know what the child will take with them and what they will not take with them.
That is so true. See, what the child takes from parents is very simple. This is what I tell all my parents. It's not what you do for the child that the child will remember. It's how you make the child feel at every moment is exactly what the child is going to remember and take it as a lesson. Meaning, I understand that as a parent, you would want to discipline your child or to teach your child a certain ethical value or a moral value, or a, I'm not the kind of person or parent who believes in good behavior, bad behavior. I don't specify behaviors as good or bad at all. However, but for the sake of propriety and for the sake of people's understanding, I will say yes, you will want some good behavior or some bad behavior that you will want your child to pick up and not to pick up, right? So every time a child does something good, you're very happy and you're very eager to praise the child, right? Because you feel so motivated, you feel so good, you feel so accomplished as a parent, you feel so ecstatic about that efficiency or that, you know, that good behavior of your child. It's like a reflection on you, correct? How quickly you would praise your child. The same way, when your child does something which is termed according to you as a not acceptable behavior, then don't be that quick in disciplining the child or yelling at the child or telling the child that it is a wrong thing. Instead, sit with the child and try and facilitate a process as to why you feel it is a not acceptable behavior, meaning what really happens. Meaning, let's say your child has spoken a lie for the first time, or it's you ask the child, did you finish your box, or did you finish your lunch in the school? And the child might not have finished it. So the child might say, yeah, I finished it. And when you open the dabba, you see that the food is still there and you're not happy about it. So you call the child and you start yelling at the child or giving the child a, you know, huge advice and gyan session saying, you just lied to me, you did this, you did that. It's okay. I mean, it's fine. You can give the child the lecture, you can tell the child what to do, what not to do. But think about it. Probably one of the other way of doing this also is to just sit with the child and say, okay, if you I see that you have eaten the food, you have eaten it partially, you've not completely eaten the food. There is a difference between partially eaten food and finishing the food completely. And talk about why it is important, talk about what happens over a period of time if the child continues to neglect eating food. Talk about choices and talk about consequences. Talk about trust. Talk about language. Talk about how trust gets built with this kind of language. Like if I ask you a question next time, have you eaten your food? I would, this is what I mean. I mean, have you completely eaten the food? Not have you eaten one or two bites of your food? If that is my motto, then next time I will ask you, did you taste your food? So teach the child what is the language, the difference in language. More often than not, what happens is when a child does that, when a child learns that, automatically you will see all these behaviors, unacceptable behaviors slowly receding away. What I'm trying to tell you is, if your child feels secure, even when your child has done something that you are not okay with, it will strive to learn how to do things which you are okay with. However, if you make the child feel insecure, or if you make the child feel bad about something that you don't approve of, then you will not find your child over a period of time rectifying that behavior. Two things will happen. Either the child will, over a period of time, get that, what do we call it? It'll build a thick skin around it, where no matter how much you keep yelling, no matter how much you keep saying, no matter how many times you keep repeating, it'll just start falling on the deaf ear for the child, because the child just becomes stubborn about it, because feeling not okay is become a habit for the child. My mom is always like this. She's going to be constantly talking to me. She's going to be constantly yelling at me. She just doesn't get it, man. She doesn't understand. See, all of these things, narrative gets spun in the head. All of these things will come up. So this is the reason why I tell parents that, if you want to have a conversation with your child, always remember, how is your child going to feel after you've spoken those words? That should be your marker. That should be your litmus paper test to know what is it that you need. How do you need to talk to your child?
That was all actually very beautiful. I mean, each and everything, really loved it. Okay, so let's come back now after your unschooling to your unschooling journey, and continue what happened after she left school, and what did you do? Like, how do you facilitate? I always have these questions that come up, like, okay, and my child is not going to school. What do we do now? Like, how do we facilitate? What are the things that we as adults should, what should we keep in mind to do? Like, what should we do? How to facilitate, and what should we do?
Okay, so after the funniest thing about pulling my daughter out of school was, I just first what I did was, after I had done my homework, I figured out, okay, there is unschooling. There are people who have been unschooling their children. There are people who have been homeschooling their children and stuff like that. And I got all the information. I found out how many families are around, and I took my husband and we met up with a couple of them, and we had lovely discussions around this and all that. My husband was okay. Then came the topic of breaking it to my in-laws, telling my in-laws that I'm going to be doing something so crazy. My father-in-law, he is amazing. He is the biggest support system. So he was like, yeah, let's do it. So he was like, let's do it from right now. So I was like, okay, makes sense. My mother-in-law is a little more temperamental that way. So she, her only concern was she said this, and it was very beautiful the way she said it. She said, you are the mother. This world, no matter what your child does, will always constantly look at you and say, either you messed up or you got something right. They're never going to give you a breathing space. So from that perspective, I'm just going to be telling you only one thing. Whatever you do, whatever you decide, you're only thinking from the child's perspective. My suggestion is also think from your perspective. How would you feel? Can you live guilt-free? Can you be okay with this decision that you have taken up? And then I was like, wow. So somebody psychoanalyzed the psychologist out here. So that was wonderful. And I did think through a lot about this, and I told her, yes, this is a decision that I am either going to regret for the rest of my life, or I'm going to be wonderfully in sync with whatever it is. But what gave me the confidence, what really gave me the confidence to go ahead with this was, the first 5 years, the wonderful moments that I spent with my child, and those wonderful moments of her learning. Why can it not just continue throughout her lifetime? Why does it have to be that she has to go to a school, or she has to go to somebody else, and they have to sit and teach her how much and when she needs to be learning certain things, and how she needs to be learning certain things? So let's break that mold. So by the time we had all this discussion, it was obviously after she went to bed is when we had all these adult discussions in our family. So next day morning, because it was late night, I woke up late, but she was up early and she had already taken off to school. So I woke up and I was like, okay, where's she? And my husband said, he was like, she's gone to school. And I was like, why did she go to school? We decided that we are not sending her to school. And I went to her school right then, I just changed my clothes, I brushed my teeth, and I just took off. I didn't even have a bath. I went straight to her school, walked up, and I said, I'm Akshara's mom here, and can I have my child back? And they were like, they asked, do you intend to take her back home? Is there some kind of emergency? I was like, yes, I'm planning on taking her back home. There is some kind of emergency. And then she packed up and she came. The moment she came, I was like, come, let's go. And that's it. I brought her back home. But before we came home, we had a pit stop in one of the parks. We first went to Baskin Robbins, picked up ice cream for her, went to a nearby park, sat in the park. And while she was eating the ice cream, I broke the news to her that she wouldn't be going to school from tomorrow onwards. I don't think she paid so much attention. She didn't take me that seriously at that moment. What happened was we came back home and she was quiet through the day. She didn't say anything. Next day morning, she woke up and she was kind of getting dressed. And then I asked her, where are you going? We aren't going to school. And she looked at me and she was like, you're serious about this? And I was like, yeah. And then she was like, okay, what are we doing? And I was like, we'll do whatever you want to do. And she was like, have you gone mad? You pulled me out of school. You are supposed to tell me what am I supposed to do. You didn't ask me what am I supposed to do. I'm supposed to sit and study. I'm supposed to sit and learn. And I was like, let's do that. And she was like, yeah, but who's going to teach me? And I'm like, you're going to learn. And she was like, okay, my mom's lost it. My mom's completely lost it. So she was like totally flabbergasted. She had no idea that I was serious about it. She was like, I don't know what you're talking. I don't know what you're trying to do here, but are you even for real? Then started her rebellion. It was crazy amount of rebellion because every day she would get up, she would come to me. Every moment she would be like, will you send me back to school? And I would be like, no, baby. And then she would be like, so how am I going to learn? And I would be like, you're going to learn by your own. And then she was like, how do I even know how to learn all of these things? And I was like, then started the stories about who taught you how to flip over, who taught you how to get up and sit, who taught you how to crawl on your fours, who taught you how to get up and stand, who taught you how to walk around. None of us taught. And for that matter, I didn't even teach you how to eat food. For that matter, I didn't even teach you how to, play, how to do anything for that matter. I didn't toilet train you. I didn't do anything. I didn't even teach you ABCD, but you already knew everything. You knew ABCD before you joined school. What did your teacher teach you? And she was like, I don't know, but there's something that I'm learning in school. Everybody goes to school. And I was like, yeah, but everybody goes to school doesn't mean that, we have to go to school as well. Learning can happen anywhere, any moment. So I don't think she really agreed on that. She was so rebellious and she was so upset about it. She was like, okay, so what do we do now that you've taken me out of school and we're sitting at home? What do we do? I was like, we'll do whatever you want to do. She was like, whatever I want to do. And I was like, yeah, whatever you want to do. And then started the biggest nightmare. She turned on the TV, sat in front of the TV. Through the day, she would watch the TV. Through the night, she would watch the TV. You turn off the TV, she would look at you and she would turn around and she would say, but you told me I could do whatever I wanted to do. You either send me to school or you leave me alone. And that was funny initially, but as children can be very, very, very resilient. Oh man, my daughter was extremely resilient, extremely hard-headed. She gave me a run for my money. It was like, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. She's been sitting in front of the TV non-stop. She's not walking here, she's not walking there, she's not doing anything. She goes to the loo, she eats. She goes to the loo, the TV has to be on. She turns up the volume and goes. And she's eating in front of the TV, she's sleeping in front of the TV. Everything is happening in front of the TV. You try to pull her away from the TV, then she just turns around and she says, "You're not sending me to school. What did I ask you for? I just asked you to send me to school. You don't want to send me to school, then you sit and teach me. If you're not going to teach me and if you're not going to be my teacher, then I will do what I want to do. This is what I want to learn." And I was like, okay. And then I would turn on the TV back again for her, give her the remote and walk back. It wasn't, I mean, now in hindsight, and believe me, I'm now sitting here and talking and, laughing about it. In that moment, those days, I was so completely shaken up. I was like, oh my God. Forget about me being a child psychologist. Forget about me being mother. I think I started questioning my own essence of my own sanity. I started questioning my every belief system.
No,
I'm
actually wondering how you went through like the other day, because I really believe like let the child do whatever they want. I let my son watch few YouTube videos and I was like, okay, 1 hour is going to stop to us. 4 hours he watched straight. He's 4 years old and he watched for 4 hours. Okay. It's like, okay, he's going to stop at some point. After 4 hours, I literally went like crazy. And you know what I didn't want to happen, like yelling and screaming, that happened. Eventually, after 4 hours, I don't understand how you did it for 6 months. Like, I'm still wondering. Like if my son
it wasn't easy. Believe me, it wasn't easy. I would go into the bathroom, lock myself up, and I would turn on the water and scream into the water.
And it would be just not you, like everyone would around you would actually wondering what is happening, like, and you would actually ask yourself, am I doing something right or wrong, or am I spoiling my child's life? I don't know how you dealt with all that.
Everything, I had my husband finally coming and asking me, saying, "Are you sure you know what you're doing anymore?"
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what kept you going.
And I asked myself, saying, am I even aware of what I'm doing? Am I even on the right path? What am I doing? Is it easy? I mean, you have no idea how many times I've struggled with myself, and I was this close to going ahead and putting her back in school. Believe me, she would have won. She had no clue. One more day of it, she would have broken me completely. Oh, but something gave, But the only thing that I did through that entire phase was every day religiously, no matter what happens, no matter what I was doing, I would keep encouraging her and keep calling her back and keep telling her, like, I was cutting the vegetables and I'm cooking. I would tell her, like, "Hi, would you like to come and help me out?" And then she would be like, "What for? My life is over. I don't have a skill. I don't know how I'm going to earn my money. You're not sending me to school. You told me whatever I wanted to do, I could do. I don't want to do that. I only want to watch TV." You tell her anything, this would be her mantra. And oh man, it was funny. I used to sit journal, and oh, there have been sleepless nights that I've gone through thinking through if I am really sane or have I really lost it? Am I doing something really wrong? But I think no matter how much I journal, no matter how much I thought through, no matter how much I was having all these doubts, one thing that constantly kept me going was the trust in the child's ability to just learn. And it was like, I think somewhere along the line, I also got it into my head saying like, I'm seriously going to see how much of TV is this kid going to really watch. So let's just get on with it. So I think we went through a crazy amount of emotions, crazy amount of roller coaster rides. And like anything in excess does give you that repulsive feeling, did eventually happen. She finally kind of got bored because all those, what do you call, the cartoons that she used to see then became very repetitive. So the more and more it became repetitive for her, she kind of slowly started getting, I'm okay, done with this. So one fine day, I had given up after about 6-7 months or something, somewhere down that so many months, I had completely stopped counting how many more days it's been. I had completely given up everything and I was just going about doing my own thing. And I was in the kitchen cooking something, and then she came into the kitchen by her own accord and asked, do you need any help? And that moment was such a profound relief for me. But I also had to put up this face of not having to showcase that I'm finally relieved that she came out of this thing, because I was scared where I'm going to push her back into that mindless watching of rebellion of watching the TV. So I just gave her the cutting board, I gave her the vegetables and said, if you could continue this, then I'll get on with the other job. So then she started cutting the vegetables and all that. And then slowly the topic came up. So then she was like, don't get me wrong here, Mama. I'm sure you know things better than me. But what will I do for a living? Imagine a 9-year-old walking up to her mother and saying, how will I earn my living in life? That was how my daughter spoke. And then I was like, what do you love? What do you want to do? What do you like? Then she was like, I don't know. This is the reason why I need to go to school. And I said, no, school is not going to teach you what you like. School is not going to teach you what you are good at. What school is going to do is school is going to set a system, a framework that says at this age, in this period, in this moment, in this time, you need to learn this. Why are we learning that? The school is not going to sit and tell you. How are you going to apply that in your day-to-day life? The school is not going to tell you. Then how am I supposed to know all of these things? I said, exactly. If you need to know all of these things, then you need to learn to live your life. And when I say you need to learn to live your life, you need to go deep within yourself to find out what do you want. And believe me, as a child, you'll grow into it. You'll keep changing it, keep trying it. It's like try on clothes. How do you know what clothes you want? And she was like, I'll pick up whatever I like. And then I was like, then let's do that. And she was like, how? I said, okay, let's do an activity. You have Google, you have the computer and laptop in front of you. Okay. I'm going to open up the laptop. I'm going to turn it on, put on the Google for you. Just go Google it away. Ask what all things I can be like, what does animal vet mean? Veterinarian. If you like working with dogs or animals, then veterinarian is one of the option you can be. So go there, Google, ask, these days Google has this mic and all that you can just turn on, and you don't even have to spell it out. You can just ask, hey, Google, tell me what is this? Tell me what is that? So go nuts, do all this and things like that. That kind of brought the rhythm back. So her quest of wanting to see what options are available. So she went through a crazy amount of things, like, for a month over there, she wanted to be a librarian. So then we said, okay, now that you've decided you want to be a librarian, why do you have to be a librarian only when you grow up? Why can you not be a librarian right now? And that kind of like, brought her to a very whole new level of thinking. And she was like, you mean to say now as a child? And I was like, yeah, as a child, why can you not be? And then she was like, but how? I don't even have the qualification necessary for it. I said, do you remember as a child, you do a lot of pretend play? And she was like, yeah, but that is playing, mama. And I thought, and then I told her, what is life then? Your entire life is nothing but a pretend play. You are playing a role. You're playing different various roles. You're a mother, playing the role of a mother. You're playing the role of a daughter. You're playing the role of a friend. You're playing the role of something. You're living in a society as per the society's constraints and, the territory and whatever the rules and regulations as a citizen. So you're playing the role of a citizen over there. So you're doing everything. The same way, librarian is a role that you can play. So what does it take to become a librarian? Then she said, I will need lots of books to open up and, start a library. I said, brilliant. I pulled out all my storybooks, all my novels, all my, nonfiction books, everything, all her books, everything. And then I stacked it up to the wall. And I said, are these enough to begin with? She was like, yeah, I think so. And then I was like, okay, now next, what do you want to do? And she was like, we will need a library card, membership cards. I said, great. So how do we go about getting it done? So she designed a library membership card. She designed a library, form, membership form and all that. Then she created a pamphlet. She went and distributed it to everyone in the, layout, saying that I have opened a library. There's a library, please come. It's free membership and free this thing and all that, with rules and regulations and everything in place and all that. Never mind, it never worked. So nobody came. None of the children came to her. So, that was another major hit in the roadblock, because right after her rebellion, she comes up with, motivation to do something. And then she comes up and she chooses with all the energy and passion that she wants to be a librarian. And she does so much of hard work and she puts in all that effort. She goes through a lot of learning and eventually to see that thing fail. I mean, theoretically, I will tell you it's a good experience for the child, because the child learned a beautiful lesson of, how to take failure as just a stepping stone to success and not get demotivated by it. Right? As a psychologist, it's very easy for me to say, like, it's okay. Motivate your child and all that. But as a parent, oh my God, it's heartbreaking. And I was like, no, I can't allow my child to fail. No, what if she goes back into her rebellion? I can't handle that. What if she goes back to watching her TV? I can't take the TV for 6 more months. No. You go through all of this. You go through this entire crazy stuff. And there's so many sleepless nights you go through as a parent. This journey is definitely not an easy one. And especially you call it unschooling, homeschooling, road schooling, microschooling, or you call it child-led learning. You need to have immense faith. You need to have immense trust. And if you ask me, faith in what? I don't know. I can only tell you that I have immense faith in children. I just have immense faith in children. That's it. You can never come to me and you can never tell me that, this child will not learn something. You can never tell me, you can never convince me that this child